No card has a blanket yes and no definition. However, the context of what your question was and what topics and themes and technicalities behind what you're asking is going to heavily influence the answer that you're getting. Your question is going to heavily determine what that card actually means. You could put all the tarot cards that you think mean yes on the left, all the tarot cards that you think mean no on the right. That could give you a general kind of guidance in maybe what direction the answer could be pointing more towards, but sometimes we can miss the mark, and that really amazing opportunity to understand how incredible your cards have just been trying to answer your specific question. You might actually miss it, jump ahead of yourself and say, yes, that's a yes card, or no, that's a no card, oh my god, it's such a negative looking card. But actually we don't let the picture sit with us. Study it for a few moments and reflect on it, meditate over it, or at least just let our intuition, our inner guidance, whatever you want to call it, speak up about certain things that it might be seeing in the card sitting back at them. And this is why I don't think anyone should read their cards or anyone else's cards, especially anyone else's cards, if they're paying for you to give a reading. I strongly advise you not to go by the textbook. It's a good place to start, helping yourself become familiar with what the cards generally mean, and it's fun to read about definitions. A lot of tarot teachers will tell you that the guidebook that comes with your deck should just be binned. I don't agree with that, because I think it's actually really exciting and fun reflecting over people's opinion on art and like what they think when they see a certain piece of artwork. So for that reason, I think it's really good. But then when it actually comes to asking your own questions and giving a really good reading and a very specific one to you, you lose a lot of magic when you rely too heavily on what the internet says in a forum that card means, or what your book says that card means. In the same way, it's a bit like an artist only ever tracing images of other artists' work and claiming them as their own, adapting them a little bit but never feeling fully empowered enough to make their own mark and make something theirs completely. That's when you find yourself as a tarot reader. You realize what you're good at, how you read and interpret, and communicate that to your querent, find your place in the tarot reading world, especially as it's gone crazy over the past 5 years. We don't really have room here to copy our next door neighbour. Blanket term definitions and kind of generic, wishy-washy pieces of information that come with each card. An example might be the Tower card, for instance. Now, a lot of people know this is a negative card. It looks very dark, it looks chaotic, and it looks like something you'd want to probably avoid. So you may assume it's a no card, which, once again, like I said, if you were to put those cards in piles of yes and no, I would probably put Tower in no too. But I always feel like there's room for a maybe in every card if you look for it. If we were to be asking a question such as, should I move out of the dorm I'm living in? And the Tower card appears, is it still a no answer? What's actually happening in that card? So let's say someone sat down with their cards and asked, should I try again with my ex-partner? Because their boyfriend's reappeared in their life and they've said, I've changed and I'm better now and I'm a different person. Pulls a card and she gets the Knight of Wands. So unlike the Tower card, the Knight of Wands, I would say, would be in my yes pile. However, context behind my question is that me and my ex didn't work out because I found him too immature and I didn't feel stable, I didn't feel structure, I felt he was very childish and I needed someone more independent and mature. And receiving a card like the Knight of Wands without that context makes it difficult for someone who maybe is reading a client that they don't know. So this card for me would be more of a confirmation of the same traits that this guy would still have if they were to get back together. Therefore, I would answer this question as more of a reminder for my client as to why it didn't work out in the first place. If I didn't know why they broke up in the first place, I would simply answer with something similar to, the cards are saying yes if you're looking to be with someone who has Knight of Wands traits. Spontaneous, fun, fiery puppy dog energy who loves to travel and not take life too seriously. Regarding that's why they broke up in the first place, it looks to be more likely, therefore, a no. That's why when you're reading someone without context, it's important to pick up on any messages that come with that card other than yes and no. And a lot of these yes and no answers that you get with tarot often come with a but. A little essay, as it were. It comes with a piece of advice with that yes or no. It might even come with a bit of a ultimatum in a way. Yes, if you were to do this, or no, because your timing's not right, or something. Like, there's going to be additional information that's quite important alongside that yes and no, because you don't want to just tell someone, no, you shouldn't go get a new job. They'll be frightened into that job they don't like for the rest of their life because that tarot reader told them they should not get a new job. Perhaps the card's also saying timing's not right, or you haven't figured out what it is you should be looking for yet, or wait until financially you're a little bit better, or, you know, always make sure you elaborate and don't just give dead-end answers to yourself or anyone else. A really fundamental fact in tarot is that cards are not biased. When we put cards into yes and no positions, we are kind of projecting a bias into them in a way. So we're saying, well, that card's always going to be yes because it looks so pretty and it seems lovely, and to me it looks exciting, and this card, however, looks dark and dreary and miserable, and there's things in the background I don't like and I associate them to bad things. But you've also got to remember that people want different things. The card to one person might be a no, but what if to another that's the kind of relationship they do want? So for example, let's say someone wanted to know what their future with this partner was going to look like, and you pulled a devil card for them. Now, to you and to most people, that probably looks a bit alarming. You're like, okay, is there too much control here? Like, is there going to be an imbalance of power? They want to hold you down. Like, that doesn't seem very freeing. And yes, obviously most people watching this will probably agree in that being a negative, but it's always worth even saying to people or considering yourself when you're reading for yourself, unless you are looking for a dynamic in which there's a power exchange, I mean, let's not kink shame, or it could even be a work situation. We might not know that this person we're reading about is actually dating their boss or something. We might even need to bear in mind that they are in a working environment, so perhaps they're in some form of contract in which their partner is higher up than them, or they're bonded together by some kind of important situation in their work life. You might like relationships where you have all the control, you take the lead, and no one tells you what to do and bosses you around, but that's not for everyone. Different strokes for different folks, as long as it's a healthy environment, of course. And another example could be the Nine of Swords sitting in your no pile. Well, what if I was to ask a question such as, am I good enough for this job? Does that card still say no? And I've always found Nine of Swords really interesting for that reason, because she is stressed out, she's worried. That doesn't necessarily mean that her future is doomed, her present is doomed, and everything's as bad as maybe she's thinking it is. And this could be picking up on the anxieties in the question itself, rather than what you're being advised to do. If anything, she's being advised to see things for as they are, rather than as she's thinking them, because remember, swords is about thoughts. She's got a hand over her face, so she's not looking at the situation for what it is. So if I'm sitting there asking a question, you've got to be really honest with yourself, and also leave your ego at the door. If I can look at that card and see myself in it, perhaps overthinking myself into a spiral tonight, therefore sabotaging my energy and how well I can perform tomorrow. The actual answer is in myself, really, in the anxiety I'm having around the question, and it's kind of interfering with my potential. Yes or no questions are a bit weird because they tempt us to shut ourselves off from potential. And I think tarot is most powerful when instead you can say, what do I need to do to pass the exam tomorrow? How can I best prepare to be good enough for the job, rather than just kind of potentially scaring yourself off from doing something that you want to do. My personal favourite thing to do is pull cards for both options, actually. What's the outcome of taking this new job opportunity? What's the outcome of not taking this new job opportunity? Aspects of both scenarios. Figure out for yourself what different elements would be more for you and what scenario looks nicer for what you need right now. It might be good for you to sit and reflect over your question for a little bit while you're shuffling or just sitting quietly with your deck, and ask yourself what cards or card you would like to see when pulling the answer for this question. And I'm saying this because some of the craziest things have happened to me, and the most confirming, assuring answers I've ever had is when I've literally just sat with my deck and known from my knowledge of tarot what would be the perfect textbook example definition of the answer that I need. So this one year I actually asked whether I should travel home for Christmas, and I said to myself, do you know what, a question like this would be the cherry on the cake if it received an answer which was the Four of Wands. And I sat literally in this room on that floor down there and I pulled a card. Yeah, you've guessed it, it was the Four of Wands. I'll never forget saying that in my head and then flipping the card over and just, what the hell has just happened? But the real reason that tip's so helpful is because we want to be thinking about what the situation will look like. What will yes look like? What will no look like? So say I asked a question about whether I would pass an exam. Passing the exam to you might look like cars, vehicles, because passing the exam means you can be a mechanic. For you, an ideal card would be the Chariot card. If we take Nine of Pentacles, for instance, typically this is a yes card. It's a very positive looking card, lots of money, bright yellow. Most people would see this as a yes card. However, if I was asking a question such as, will we end up together? I'm going to be thinking to myself, I want to see cards with two people or a loving environment, a connection in some way. I probably want to see cup cards. But for that kind of reading, what do you see? Is this the kind of scenario that you wanted out of the question that you asked? She's on her own, she's female, independent, financially independent. It kind of boils down to a lot of common sense. It's common sense and it's intuition kind of wrapped into one. I will give you a little bit of guidance by categorizing them all up into their own suits, because there will be particular questions which will favour particular suits. As I mentioned earlier on in this video, swords are about thoughts. A little bit of a process card. I feel like most swords highlight the fact that there's some kind of improvement in mental struggles that's necessary. You might need to shift your perspective a little bit more, be a bit more confident in yourself, or think better about yourself, cut some maybe mental toxic habits. Swords is also about information and the mind. So there might even be stuff that you haven't yet discovered or you don't yet know. It's kind of a waiting game perhaps, or you need to explore some knowledge and kind of stimulate your mind a little bit more before making any decisions. Swords are also very swift. They are the element of air, so they can chop and change and move quite a little bit. So I would say questions around stability and stuff is more so a negative with swords, because things I feel like with swords can leave as quick as they come. They're very clear cut, they say it as it is. Unless we're talking about the Ace of Swords, I feel like with swords a lot of things are often up in the air, floating about, and you might need them to settle a little bit because there might be a lot of clarity with swords. Swords are positive in that they can cut to the matter of things, but then what does that leave you with, kind of thing. Hyperactivity in the brain can act as a barrier between what it is that you want and yourself. Maybe some journaling or reflecting, sitting over things for a little while might be quite useful in context to the answer to your question. The reason why Ace of Swords is different is because I feel like with all the aces, if you're asking a question and you get any ace, it's pretty much one of the most straightforward yeses in the whole of tarot. I think most people would want to see an ace when they're asking a yes or no question, particularly the Ace of Wands. It literally has a thumbs up in it. Aces are often yes cards. The only thing I will say though, if you pulled an ace for a yes or no question, is to consider that they are only aces, however. And what I mean by that, it's not a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It is still the very beginning of something. With any ace, you could say, potentially, if you open your heart enough, Ace of Cups, potentially, if you let the spark become a fire, show you're passionate enough, you move enough, you use your energy, you're not lazy. Potentially, if you dare to see what is beyond that archway there. In the Ace of Pentacles, it's up to you whether you want to add stability and structure of that pentacle suit into your life by making it 2 of Pentacles, 3 of Pentacles, 4 of Pentacles. Speaking of stability and Pentacles though, the Pentacle suit is really promising for people who are asking questions about the future of something, like particularly obviously financial questions. You're going to want to see Pentacle card, obviously. For the Pentacle suit, I would presume that the more pentacles you have in the card would make the answer more positive. So that's more of a yes answer depending on what the person's doing with the coins. Are they looking over them? Are they thinking about them? Well, that goes to show that maybe you've just got to persist and be patient, slow growth, and perhaps they are clinging on to all the coins. And if you're asking a question like, will I improve on my savings? And you get a card like the 4 of Pentacles. He's clinging on to his savings. He's not spending any money. He's not splurging. He's not letting any go. He's being very kind of thrifty and careful. So that actually would translate into a yes for you. However, most people would probably read this as a no answer card. Pentacles deal with the more like practical and logical aspects of your question. So if you're asking anything about relationships and you're getting 7 of Pentacles, for instance, how does he feel about me? Or will we pursue a relationship together? This is someone who's trying to work out the logistics of that happening, because Pentacles are like the factual things going on in your life, the actual tangible things that you can see. This isn't feelings or thoughts. This is actual physical things. So someone is looking over at the way things practically are and how it's going to work. So they're kind of prioritizing that over just feelings and cups and love. And in terms of time, like unlike the Swords card, you would consider the Pentacles to be talking about long-lasting matters, so long-term things and concrete things. For example, will he call me back? 2 of Pentacles. There's tangible, logical aspects to the matter. So maybe he's busy juggling a lot of things. He's got work, friends, family. Calling you isn't a priority right now. Speaking of priorities, if you got the same card for will I pass the exam? 2 of Pentacles might tell you that logically you need to reassess your priorities a little bit more. It's getting all a bit much, like you are juggling a lot at once, so maybe you have to concentrate on one thing more than the other so that you don't spread yourself too thin, which is why a lot of people find the King of Pentacles, Page of Pentacles, like Knight of Pentacles in particular, they might see them as quite boring. If I was to ask how the relationship will go and I got a Court card that was a Pentacle, then it might not be very exciting, but hey, it's going to last long. Yes, you will be happy because you feel stable. However, if I got 10 of Cups, well, will I be happy in this relationship? It looks good for the question because you want to see Cups for a love-related question, but how long will it last? Is it temporary fulfillment? Is it temporary satisfaction? And maybe you could leave that reading asking yourself what it is that you actually want about the relationship and why you feel drawn towards the relationship. Is it just to scratch an itch kind of thing? Cups will be what you want to hear typically for a romantic reading. However, there's always importance in balance in tarot, remember. So sometimes if you have too much emotional charge into the reading, you might get cup cards kind of reflecting back how you're just seeing a scenario, such as 4 of Cups. That reflects the querent more than it does the actual situation, because look how glum they look, kind of fed up. Same with 5 of Cups as well. They're more interested in the past than the present. You might also find elements appearing in other cards that aren't actually of that element, if that makes sense. So the Temperance has Cups in them too, so you can still kind of think about how that's linked in a way. She would be a yes card, as long as there is some balance implemented. So maybe you need to control emotions a little bit more because she's controlling the water, or she's blending together elements of her situation. So yes, if you try something you haven't tried before. Though this is a yes card, if I was to ask a question like, should I stay in the same workplace this year? It's almost like maybe she's trying something part-time, or like there's definitely changes happening. It doesn't feel like things are staying the exact same because there's a flow, there's movement. So many different things of questions that are simply yes or no. Elements, the movements, the colours, the weather, the facial expressions, the body language, the symbolism. Symbolism's also really important too. Will the seeds in my garden sprout by end of April? And I pull the 10 of Wands. Look at the little sprouts at the top of the wand. And sometimes you can just sit with things like that and have a little laugh to yourself because of connections that you're making. Lastly, Wands, I would actually argue as being one of the most positively yes elements out of the lot. You've got this go for it, change, achievement, drive, fire, passion, enthusiasm. I would say most of them are yeses, unless you are asking a question that involves ego. I think the one thing that really gets in between me and a Wands card being a yes is if someone is doing something for the wrong reasons, or perhaps the 5 of Wands, the 10 of Wands can be an overkill in passion because it's just fire playing with fire. Sometimes it can be friendly competition, but if you asked a question like, will I make progress in something? Will I get somewhere that I need to be? 5 of Wands is a 5, it's in the middle of the timeline, so it's like doing this. I read all 5s as a bit like, why don't we actually like step back a little bit and organise this chaotic passion? Too much of anything is sometimes a bad thing. And the last one to consider is court cards. Court cards are really interesting because they give you a good kind of personification of what you're asking. So, will I enjoy my new job? Knight of Wands. It's giving you a look into how you'll feel in that job. Passionate, fiery, puppy dog energy, back and forward, up and down, like you can't really sit down for too long, very creative. Remember what I said though, I'm being biased. So is that something you want? Are you someone who wants to travel a little bit further out for work? Are you someone who wants to be up on your feet all the time for work? Are you a creative person? Perhaps you actually are into finance and you want a more analytical job and you want a desk job where you sit down, then this won't be for you because you feel too much fire in your energy when you're in that job, and you know that you're more of a earthy pentacle kind of person. And this is also particularly good if you're asking a question about someone else. So, do they like me? And you get the Queen of Wands. I would read this as a yes. That might change. I feel like Swords energy is quite choppy. So yes, she does currently. She's very clear on that, and she might be quite matter of fact in that, and she might even say that to you. However, I would read the Queen of Swords as a little bit bossy. So any wrong moves might change her mind. If I was to ask, will I enjoy working with my new colleague? And I got the Knight of Swords. Some people might see this as a typical yes. However, if I was to look at this card, it makes me shudder looking at it. So like, he is very do before thinking. He is quite immature when it comes to thinking and talking. He's the Knight of Swords. So remember all the things I said about what swords are. It's communication, it's thought, it's information. He is a knight, so he's not a progressed like king or queen. So he's still learning how to deal with all of those things. So this is me working with someone who is a bit skitty, like knows a little bit about a lot, but not like a whole lot about anything. I know that would be chaotic for me to work with someone like that. That's just me. That's me personally. So if you're reading for someone else, you don't know that necessarily about someone. So instead, what you're going to want to do is if someone says to you, hey Ellie, can you ask your tarot cards if I'm going to like my new work colleague? And I pulled the Page of Wands. I need to leave my bias at home about what I think about young, fiery energy. And I've got to say, this looks like a yes. It's definitely a yes if you like younger, fiery, creative energy. If you bounce off well with people who have a lot of ideas, they're very enthusiastic about learning new things, but maybe you might have to teach them a thing or two because they are a page and that means a child in tarot. So this person I'm reading for might not like to be a leader, might not like to have to like put someone under their wing. I don't personally, but I can always appreciate fiery creative types and who are willing to learn. So there might be elements that person really likes about the colleague and really doesn't. So you've got to really try and like list out the different meanings and definitions of this card so that you can kind of give them an idea of what to consider. So like, yes, overall you will. These elements are important though. So perhaps there's something here which gets in between you liking them or emphasizes you liking them. I'm going to leave that here. I think I've said everything I need to say. If you liked this video and you want to see me do more videos like this, please give me a like and shoot me a comment, 5 words or more. That will really help with the algorithm and the support on my channel. I'm on social media such as Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Sending loads of love from my house to yours. I will see you very, very soon. Bye.